Hi angels, and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about why porn addiction is just misdirected ambition. Now keep in mind, in this video I'm only using porn addiction as an example because I need to have some type of stable example in this video in order to thoroughly explain my reasoning. In order to explain my logic in this, I have to first talk about the importance of one having an ambition in the first place and why both men and women need it. Humans are biologically wired to seek purpose. It's very easy for humans to fall into depression if they don't have a purpose or something that they are constantly putting their energy towards, because humans naturally, we just have an abundance of energy, which means that if you aren't putting your energy to something productive, naturally it will go to something that's destructive. This is why when you're in your room and have nothing to do, it's so tempting to go on your phone and doom scroll or eat junk food, because humans aren't built to just stay on their bed and watch their ceiling. Whether we're conscious or not, naturally we're going to express our energy into things. This is what being human is about. It's about finding a purpose. It's about contributing to society in some way. But from my observation, the main factor that determines whether someone is going to contribute their energy into something positive or not is solely determined by their childhood upbringing. If you're living in a home where your emotional needs aren't being met, if you're living in a home where you're not really allowed to be vulnerable, if you're living in a home where love is conditional, meaning that for you to get love, you have to perform, or you have to exceedingly meet a very high expectation set by family members or parents in order to be acknowledged in the first place to get love. These characteristics usually makes it very hard for someone to want to seek a purpose in the first place. Because in order to seek a purpose and self-improve, you first have to believe that you are worthy of self-improvement. I have a couple of friends that have suffered from addictions, and what I've noticed between all of them is that they grew up in a house that made them feel utterly hopeless. They grew up in a house devoid from healthy love. And I make this distinction between healthy love and love in general because a household can provide you love, but if that love isn't stable, if that love comes at a cost of sacrificing your boundaries and performing, then that's not actual love. When raising a child, the healthiest version of love is love that is secure, love that you can depend on. So if you grew up in a household where the love you received wasn't secure, or if it was dependent on how well you performed, this increases your likelihood to suffer from an addiction. Now, this doesn't mean that most definitely you will be addicted to something, but this does increases the likelihood for that to be the case, because usually when children grow up in a household where they don't feel love, they're not young enough to understand that, well, maybe the parents they have aren't the best of parents and just happens to not raise them with a stable amount of love. No, children/teens at this age will automatically internalize their parents' behavior, and instead of thinking, well, maybe my parents are just at fault because they didn't raise me with love, instead they're going to think that I am not lovable. I am worthless. I don't deserve love. Now, like I said before, humans naturally, we have an abundance of energy, okay? We are ambitious by nature. We crave purpose. But if you live in a household where you're not getting a sufficient amount of love and you start to internalize this, it's going to be harder for you to seek out a purpose. Because like I said, for someone to even want to seek a purpose, they have to feel deserving enough to do it. They have to feel deserving enough to self-improve. If you feel utterly worthless and ashamed of yourself, then what's the point of self-improving? You feel disgusting, you feel like you're stupid, then there's no point of improving because you're going to be stupid anyways, or no one's going to love you anyways. This is the train of thinking that children raised in these types of homes start to adopt. Because like I said again, they're internalizing this hatred, which makes them start to self-loathe and not take care of themselves. I can definitely relate to this because when I was younger and I was in my most depressed state, this is not really good, but in my worst state, I wouldn't do things like shower and comb my hair and, just anything that has to do with maintaining myself and, like, hygiene. I wouldn't do it because I was in the state of, well, I'm worthless, so what's the point of doing it anyway? No one cares, so why even bother? The good news about this, though, is that it doesn't matter if you came from a extremely impoverished family or a healthy and happy one. Humans will always have the yearning to find purpose regardless, okay? That energy inside of you isn't going to just be magically revoked from you just because you had a bad upbringing. But the unfortunate part about this is that if you are from a home where you're not getting love and you're not seeking out a healthy purpose to give you fulfillment, naturally you're going to turn to destructive things to give you that fake sense of purpose. And this is where addictions come to play. Addictions are literally just a substitute for purpose. This doesn't mean that it's a healthy substitute for purpose. This just means that it gives a false likeness of purpose, and I'm going to explain why. So for me to explain this, I have to first talk about the characteristics of a purpose. This is something you could apply to every purpose. The 4 characteristics of purpose that I have recognized in every purpose is love, stability/consistency, labor, and positive feedback. Now, before I start, a purpose and like being employed 9 to 5 is completely different. Obviously, just so I don't get comments on that, like a purpose is something that you genuinely enjoy. It's something that gives you fulfillment. A 9 to 5 and like, a desk job, the average person will never feel fulfillment towards that. So let's talk about the characteristics of a purpose. For a purpose, you have to love what you're doing / receive some type of pleasure from it, right? The second part of a purpose is that it has to be stable / you have to consistently do it. For a purpose to even be a purpose, you have to show up to it every day. And also, the purpose in itself has to be stable. It has to be something that you can even show up to every day. The third box is labor. Obviously, if you want to upkeep and have a purpose that's sustainable, you have to input some type of labor. Now, labor is literally just anything you put energy towards, okay? For example, for YouTube, me changing the lighting. I know that sounds super simple, but that is labor, okay? So with labor, you can practically use this term very loosely. The fourth and last characteristic of a purpose is that it gives you some type of positive feedback in return. This can be cash, this can be candy, it can literally be anything. It just has to be some type of positive result you gain from it. Now apply this structure to any purpose. It could be YouTube, it could be, arts and craft, but every purpose fits this type of structure. Now let's apply this to corn addiction. So like I said before, the reason why people have addictions in the first place is because it gives you a false sense of purpose. So let's apply all of these characteristics to corn addiction. So for one, obviously, people that watch corn, it's not really because they love corn. It's really because they love what corn gives them. And this is why I say it creates a false sense of purpose because, like I said, they don't really love corn, okay? They just love what it gives them. But it does check this box because corn gives people the illusion of love, the illusion of intimacy. The second thing about corn is that it's stable, meaning that you know that every time you look up corn on your phone, the website will always be there. It's stable, it's reliable. Now, this is important because, like I said, people that tend to get addicted to things, the reason why they also do this is because they crave the stability that they emotionally lacked when they were a child or when they were a teen. And corn, although it's destructive, it provides them with some sense of stability, some sense of security. There's some people that are living in terrible homes. They're broke. They have nothing to look forward to. But they know at the end of the day, that website will always be there for them. It's always going to be there. So if they can't look forward to, stable family and friend relationships, if they can't look forward to having a fulfilling purpose, and they use corn to fulfill that biological and that instinctual drive, that instinctual need. And like I said, you could apply this to all addictions. Also, it checks off the stability / consistency box, because for a purpose, like I said, for a purpose / for an addiction to sustain itself, you have to always tend to it. Just like how people that are addicted, they adopt this habitual pattern of always going to that substance or that source, that craving that makes them addicted. So they are consistently going to it, right? The third box, labor. You could probably assume what checks off the labor box, but to give you an example of this, them even searching it up online is labor, because it's like energy. They're using energy to search it up. That checks off the labor box, okay? In order for their addictions to be addictions in the first place, to exist, they have to put energy towards upkeeping that addiction. They have to put some type of labor in it. And then the fourth and last box is positive feedback. The positive feedback they receive from watching porn is dopamine. When they watch porn, it gives them dopamine. That is positive feedback. On top of all the other reasons I listed, this is another essential reason why people that are addicted become addicted in the first place. Whatever substance that they're using, whatever cravings that they're indulging in, it gives them this dopaminergic high that they can somewhat receive through healthy relationships, but porn and substances, it gives them an even greater high because they're indulging in these things in such an addictive way. And also, these substances and these cravings, these specific cravings, are meant to produce an excessive amount of dopamine in the brain so that you can be addicted to it in the first place, okay? So yes, this will be considered positive feedback. And this is why things like porn is so addictive, because like how I just described, it gives their users a false sense of purpose, a false sense of fulfillment, a false sense of love. And on top of that, it presents users with this dopaminergic high, which keeps them hooked on it. Now, the whole reason I want to talk about this is because there's a lot of stigmatization around people that have addictions. There's some people that believe that people that have addictions, their brains are just broken. They are broken. They're the scums of society. They have this weird stigmatization. But the truth is that the only difference between a addicted individual and a healthy thinking individual is that a healthy individual use their instinctual desire to seek purpose in a productive way, unlike a addicted individual. An addicted individual is just as ambitious, is just as purpose-seeking as a healthy individual. The only difference is that they use their drive for purpose to do destructive things. I would even argue that an addicted individual potentiality to seek a higher purpose may be even higher than the average healthy thinking individual, because an addicted individual, in order for them to upkeep their addiction, they have to habitually commit to whatever substance or whatever thing, craving they're addicted to. Not only that, but if a person is addicted to something, they aren't just physically addicted to this thing, they are spiritually devoted to this thing. They think about this thing all the time, They focus on this thing all the time. It's a habitual pattern that they sometimes unconsciously do. I watched this video of a lady and she was addicted. I'm not going to say the substance she was specifically addicted to, but she would take the substance without even realizing she was taking it. Like, it was like her body was just not, she was not even in control of her body. Her body just took this substance in a very second nature way without even thinking about it. So when people are addicted to things, they are literally spiritually, it's like a spiritual devotion to this thing. The trait of being devoted to something, consistently doing it, in this habitual pattern, isn't innately a bad thing. It's only bad if you use this energy to destructive things. But let's say that these same addicted individuals put this energy into something productive. They will probably be millionaires, because whether you want to believe it or not, people that are very business smart, they have this same type of, I'm going to just use the word addictive personality when it comes to business. This is what makes successful people successful, because they literally can't stop thinking about their business, okay? Every moment of their day, they're brainstorming new ways to optimize their business. So if people that have addictions just use the same energy for a higher purpose, they will be very successful. Now, obviously, it's not that easy as I'm making it seem, because if you have already formulated a habitual, negative behavior, it's going to be challenging to break out of it. But that doesn't mean that you can't. If you train your brain to be addicted to something bad, you can more than train your brain to just do something that is positive. And if you say, no, I can't, you literally can. Your brain is neuroplastic. It can literally adapt to whatever you're trying to mold it into. There's a lot of people that feel ashamed about being addicted to something, which objectively it makes sense why they are ashamed. But instead of self-loathing and just pitying yourself, use your shame to encourage you to change and to find a healthier purpose and a healthier way to use your energy. I hope this video helps and encourages you, angels, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. See you guys.